Good evening, everyone. James Hicks here from Infotainment News and Hicks New Media. It is a pleasure to be joining you tonight. Apologies for the delay, little technology difficulties, but that is what it is. We still make it happen. We still get it going. Tonight is going to be a interesting show. Tonight, I'm still going to do a unscripted version of ITN Live, but there are some topics of the day that I think we may start delving into that need to have some conversation around. But I'll save that for later. The purpose of today is actually to talk to another. I have another conversation with a gentleman who I talked to about 2 years ago. Uh, Damon Smith is one. He's my neighbor. He lives right down the street from me. So I mean that's good. I got a great resource to have not too far from me. But this man is an athlete, pro athlete. He's an author. He's an entrepreneur. He's an engineer, jazz musician, performance poet, radio personality. He's a dad, he's a husband, and he's a good friend. All of those things on one business card is definitely a lot to say, but you know what? I'm gonna stop talking and bring on Mr. Damon Smith. How you doing, brother?
Doing well. How are you?
All right, all right. I see you there. You rocking the Souletics tonight. That Souletics tank top. I'm about to get me one of those.
Yeah, yeah. So, yep. Thank you for having me on. I'm glad to be back.
Yeah, yeah. We talked was it 2 years ago in your backyard. You were back there and you showed me a little bit of your BMX, your biking skills back there and everything, and talked a little bit about you, your foundations, right where you started in terms of growing up, your professional career from the corporate world, and your professional career from an entrepreneurship perspective. And I kind of want to talk a little bit about all of that, especially I want to talk about what you're doing today from a organizational perspective, right? What Soletics is. So give the people that elevator pitch, right, of who Damon Smith is and what he does on a day-to-day basis.
Souletics is a data analytics and mental training for athletes software platform, and our focus is to help athletes take control of their careers, and additionally help organizations build championship organizations.
I like, and so what types of what's the methodology behind that, right? I mean, are you taking folks out and having them doing sprints out there on the field? Are you having them go out and do different types of training with weights, with Pilates, yoga, whatever the case may be, or what's the regimen like that you put an athlete through Selects?
Well, the physical part is really the easy part. Um, there's a lot of information out there as far as mastering your physical self. Um, I've been in this space, and we've been in this space for it's been 16 years now. So 16 years, which is basically in peak performance training. So our focus is not only helping athletes maximize the athletic ability, but more importantly, for them to harness their mental capabilities. Because as you know, that's really the most important thing to be able to leverage your athletic talents. You have to have the mindset. So, what I can say, this is something that's new and people are talking about, but it's been legitimately 16 years in this space. So, it's not anything new for us.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And I think what's interesting about what you say there. And I think we've talked about this before. You and I kind of grew up in the same kind of hood, right? You went to Fairfield. You know, shouts out to the Falcons.
Yeah,
I graduated from Vanden. Shouts out
great
to the
school.
Vikings out there. You know, we
Yeah,
beat you a lot of times, but you
yeah,
got us a couple of times too, right?
yeah,
So you've gone through the ranks, so you know what you're talking about, right? So from an athletic perspective, you know, you ran track in high school. You played football in high school. You played professional football as well, right? So you've gone through those iterations of training the body and understanding what that entails. But I like what you're saying that you're doing from your organization's perspective. The physical part is the easy part,
yeah,
right? You know, how do you have that mental focus? You see mental aptitude. You see me wearing my Mamba mentality today, right? So everything is with a purpose, right?
yeah.
Those are kind of some of the things. Talk to us a little bit again more about, say I'm an athlete coming in looking to engage with Souletics. What's kind of that first sit down discussion before you say I want to work with you on your program and help you get to where you need to be.
Well, in working with anyone, it's establishing that credibility. And you listed my accomplishments, and it's a lot. And now I'm a little bit more focused. Um, but I think that it's one, developing credibility, and not necessarily on your accomplishments and what you've done. That's a good thing, so people can say, okay, he or she has done it. But more importantly, can you connect with the individual and can you help them? And oftentimes, you have to be able to develop rapport. And if you want to help organizations, you need to be able to develop that rapport fairly quickly so that you can have the influence and be able to give the insights that they need and be able to influence that athlete or that organization in making these minor tweaks, because obviously most athletes that you deal with, or most people, they have an infinite level of potential. It's just a matter of, can you turn it on? Can you help them turn it on and sort of level up? So for elite athletes, you're trying to get 2 to 3% a year. And so to be able to do that, if you can do 2 to 3% over a 5 year period, that's 15%. So that's going to take a good player, that's going to make them great, right? That's going to put them in a different class. It'll take a high school athlete that, you know, wasn't on the level of receiving an athletic scholarship. Now they're getting recruited, right? It's the difference of a college athlete that is not starting, and now all of a sudden they're starting, their last 2 years, and they get an opportunity to play professionally. Maybe they get a tryout, they get a contract, um, but then oftentimes you hit the home run, and you get to deal with those guys that I've dealt with before, where you meet them right at the beginning of their amateur career, at the end of their amateur career, or at the beginning of their professional career, and you truly help them level up, and they become, some of the best in the world. So
Mm-hmm.
um, I think that's the main thing for me is, I've been around, probably, whether training them, um, coaching them, or um, training with them, probably at least 10 of the best athletes in the world in different professions that
Right.
you could name. And so that, I think, is what given me the insight. And the thing about what makes Soletics special is that we're software engineers that were also elite athletes. So we're designing technology that has a real, or we're designing AI, right, that has a real understanding. So I just finished up at MIT, and one of the main things that they said is, the software that you create is only as good as those that can program it. So when you understand the nuances of your profession, now you can really create software, and you
Mm-hmm.
can create systems that can truly help people. And the problem in, training in athletics is, one, that it's very saturated. in the training market or the physical training market. But there was a lot of people that they had the degree, which I have that, but they didn't really understand the nuances of the profession. And so we're starting to pass that, and now athletes and organizations are really needing people that understand the nuances. And not only that, is that you can communicate that and you can actually influence, when you're working with an organization or a player.
Makes
So
sense. Okay.
um, that I think that's what makes us special. So how we do that is we have virtual programs. Um, you have people that have done it. Obviously, Mamba Academy, but they just changed to U.S. Sports Academy. They just dropped the name recently.
Yeah.
But obviously, we can't forget what he meant and what he did for mindset, because he really brought it to the forefront. People knew it, but a guy like that was able to really separate himself and I guess, take the baton from Michael Jordan and really show, you know, what the right mindset can do. Uh,
Right. Right.
whether people uh, like uh, these athletes or not, there is truly, truly a lot to learn from them. And when you get around them and you get up close to them, there's not many people in the world that have that type of discipline. I mean, I can truly say that. So you have to respect them.
I agree with that. And
Yeah.
mindset,
Yep.
I think that's an excellent segue in terms of what I want to, I guess, go into next in terms of what you also do on a day to day basis, right? I think we were outside the other day, and I called it what we call it mental aptitude, right? Just the harnessing the mind to do better and to be better. We have a mutual friend. You actually interviewed him on your athlete show, I believe back in 2007, 2008, Kevin Bracey.
Yes.
So I talked to him the night that I talked to you and was going to have you on the show. And, the energy that he now brings, with his whole activities and with his movement. And so that mental mindset, I think, you're talking to the youth and you're talking to athletes as well about that. Talk to me from your perspective, not just the business perspective. What does having that mental toughness, that mental mindset to deal with adversity in life and in day to day. How do you deal with that? And how do you approach that on a day to day
Well,
basis?
it's interesting. I know Kevin, well. Um, it's been some time since I've seen him, but the first book that I wrote was actually we came up with that idea, the title, um, "Don't Stop the Swagger." We were like, okay, don't stop the confidence, don't stop the ability, and then all of a sudden, don't stop the swagger, right? Literally, like, and this was in Elephant Bar, and we used to just meet and just talk about mindset and this thing. And this was before, like I said, before it was popular.
Right.
Um, when you really had to, what you say, you really had to be about it. Um, Now a lot of people know the language, but this was before a lot of these concepts were really known. You just really had to be a rare individual that understood how to apply the discipline. But anyway, we were developing this book. We said, man, don't stop the swagger. So we were gonna write this book in a joint together, right? But
Okay.
Kevin, who's a great speaker, um, was he had some plans and he was really trying to get going and get his business off the ground. So he's like, man, I got other things I got to do. So I'm like, okay, and then so I'm like, I'm going to do it. So I got after it, and then 9 months later, man, I finished the book. Not in 9 months, I wrote it, finished it, and then, man, I showed up at his doorstep with the book. He was like, he was just like, in shock. And Kevin's positive, so he just, and I know that he actually uses it and talks about it. But the thing about that, he actually uses and tells that story a lot. Um, about mindset. But Kevin, you know, when you hear about his story of playing baseball and him being a professional prospect, a guy that's going to play professionally and get drafted, while playing D1 college uh, during a time when scholarships they didn't come in the way that they come now. Like it was a different time in the late '90s and early 2000s. It was a different time, but he was playing D1 ball, and he tells a story about breaking his thumb and rehabbing himself, uh, and then ultimately on his first at bat hits a home run, right? So that's mindset. So and the reason I say that is because, right, the thing about this mindset is there's something that innate that you have, and all of us have this greatness, we have this infinite ability, but a lot of us don't harness it. Um, and in reality, it's not easy. It's not an easy thing to do, and I know a lot of people say that and they want to present it that way, but it takes discipline. It takes a
Yeah.
mindset, and it takes a sacrifice. And on the other side of that is a great reward. So when you see excellence out there, you have nothing but to appreciate it. Um, and and that's what I was telling you the other day. So when you're in this business, and I'm in the software side and in the mindset, so I've sort of combined it. You really have an appreciation for all of these women and men across multiple sports and multiple disciplines. Um, so I mean, even you mentioned Kevin, but and that's a guy that's been speaking for probably been 20 years now,
Yeah.
right? They've
Yeah.
been in the speaking business a
Hmm.
long, long time, right? And so grind, a mindset, right? And so, um, and I believe now the world is really ready for a new generation of leaders um, that have,
Talk about that. All right, I'm gonna start throwing the
yeah,
curves now. So
yeah,
now is where I'm gonna start interjecting some current events and some different types of conversations. So talk to me about what makes you say that. Go down that path a little bit.
well, I mean, I just know from even my experiences, the amount of people that reach out to me to where that wasn't happening before, right? It was difficult. It's stuff. I'm not where we're not where we want to be because we want to be the preeminent name in the mental and the mindset space. We want to be the company worldwide. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and how we will do that will be different than how everyone does it, where they have this blanket and they're trying to work with 10 million people at the same time. No, you know, we will work worldwide, but we'll work with the single mom. We'll work with the parents that have a 5-year-old child that the child loves golf, uh, and we'll work with the elite athlete that is in his rookie year. We'll work with the athlete that's injury, and we'll choose, which is what we're doing now, and it's working. So it's customized and it's using software the best way. And so what I mean by this new guard, so to speak, well, I mean everything. When you look at the world and you look at mindset, take um, your mind, for example, as every thought you have is like a pin needle at a microscopic level. So all of your thoughts are a pin needle at a microscopic level. So
Mm-hmm.
the fact that me and you are connecting on mindset, me and you are connecting on entrepreneurship, me and you are connecting on technology, that is a thought on a microscopic level. And since we have those shared thoughts, that dot would sit right on top of each other.
Okay.
Well, what's happening is in the past you've had this sort of group thinking where all of everyone's thoughts were the same, right? So everyone's thoughts were the same. So they were sitting right on top of each other. So a company would go out there, whether it was a personal development company or a marketing company or a sports drink company, and they would throw the net out there and they would grab all of these people that thought that they had the same thing. Well, now the world is different. You've got individuals that are sort of freeing their mind that have very, very unique struggles, right? Very, very unique circumstances and obstacles. And so you have to meet those people at a very customized place. And so that is, and so in order to do that, in order to be a business that actually is able to deliver,
Hmm.
you have to be a business that has the experience, real experience. You can't just manufacture it. It's
I
not as
hear that.
just creating a product and throwing it out there,
Yeah.
right? The company really has to have the experience to be able to meet those customers in a customized way.
I hear that, and then
So
I would guess I would interject and say, didn't mean to cut you off, but I guess I would interject and say, even with today's current environment, current situation, right? Everyone on lockdown and shut down. You've had to slightly pivot some of your activities, right? Because you
yeah,
can't go physically see
yeah,
and touch your clients, right? You've got to do virtual training, virtual classes, and whatever, a lot of Zoom sessions, or whatever the case
yeah.
may be. So that adds its own type of challenge as well. I want to go in a couple of different directions, but I think there's value in that, and I will put links to your site Souletics in the show notes so people can go and reach out in the future. But I can tell and I know that that whole mindset and that mentality that you incorporate that into all aspects of your life, right? So again, just being from an entrepreneur side, from a professional athlete side, but also from an artist perspective, right? I mean, let's not skip over, this component of who Damon Smith is, or should I say, Rafa Selassie. I got to get it right, man. I've been trying to get it for like the last 3 years, and I still mess it up.
Good man, Rafa Selassie. Yeah,
Rafa Selassie. I'm gonna get it right one of these days. Okay. I got some of the tracks, but I can't play them because YouTube will will lock me down. Even though I got the copyright owner on the screen right now with me.
oh well, you can play them. They won't punish you. I think that we got to take care of that. But you can play them. You just can't monetize it. So I think people get scared when they see that
Yeah, yeah,
called YouTube's content ID. So yeah, I've got to do something about that as
yeah,
far as just freeing it up and allowing people to play it. You think that you're doing the right thing as far as protecting your music, and this is kind of a global thing.
yeah.
Uh, I was doing a little bit of work for the Recording Academy, the Grammy Recording Academy, for helping them advocate for artist rights. So it's important, but at the same time, you want people to be able to play the music. So if that means you not generating a royalty, um, but still you're sharing music, I think ultimately your music will get out there. So
Yeah.
sometimes you got to break the rules in order to
You
share.
gotta
And I,
do what you gotta do. You
yeah,
gotta do what
yeah.
you gotta
So
do sometimes.
I'll probably end up doing that,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
you try to follow the normal model, and it
yeah.
certainly there's some roadblocks. Yeah.
True, true. So talk to us a little bit about, I mean, kind of the current projects you got out there right now, and if that speaks to current events, current times. So your current project Rock that's out there on Amazon right now, right? And I wrote this down because I want to make sure that I get it exactly right the way I saw it. So Rock talks about pushing through difficulty, finding yourself in the midst of trials and tribulations, and additionally understanding the importance of having a spiritual foundation. So am I accurate in that explanation?
Yes, and you were speaking on what? Which topic? Which?
On Rock, your latest project.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, so again, we've gone from the athlete, gone to the entrepreneur, and now we're in an artist perspective, and aspects of that mental focus, mental aptitude, that sharpness resonates across all three of those pillars that make up whom you are. But talk a little bit more in detail about what Rock is about.
Well, rock is that foundation. So it's that spiritual foundation. So you have the mental clarity, the mental focus, the mental fortitude. You have the physical fitness, right? Uh, to run this race of life to win. But then when your intellect runs out, when your physical energy runs out, what do you stand on? It has to be that foundation, that spiritual foundation. What are your core beliefs, right?
Yeah.
That you can hold on to. So when you look at the times that we're in right now, like, you know, what do you hold on to during times where it's kind of unforeseen? People can't predict, but you don't know. So rock represents that. Uh, and what you have is you have there it's jazz piano. So there's for each book there's a jazz piano that you listen to that's the same name, the same message.
Okay. Okay.
So you're able to kind of just kick back and read and chill, whether you're at a coffee shop or a cigar shop, you know, shop, and you're just chilling like, man, it's, reading this stuff and having a conversation while you're listening to the music. So, um, there's a series of books that are releasing one every month of this year. Um, so the four books are out right now. All the singles are out. The two will be released here pretty soon. Um, but yeah, you got me, jumping around. It used to be to where, you when you're first learning this entrepreneurship, or when you have this creativity, um, it sometimes it becomes hard to separate. So I finally figured out how to separate it, and
Mm-hmm.
so now there's pretty clear distinctions. So uh, Souletics is mindset software, very focused. You won't see anything about music, and then you have that other guy,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Where uh, I'm able to, they're able to create, music, real music, original music, all on acoustic instruments. Nothing wrong with manufacturing beats or things like that, but it's
No,
really,
I like the sound of real instruments. And you know
yeah,
how to read music, you know how to play an instrument. I see the keyboards back there. I know what you do. I know what you
yeah,
do. And hey, my job is to make you comfortable being uncomfortable. That
yeah.
is the
No,
role that
hey,
I'm playing here. See, you didn't expect all of these questions. You thought we was just gonna talk about I don't know your favorite team,
yeah,
whatever. But no, see, I'm essentially what I'm doing. I'm setting you up, but in a positive way, right? And I think this is on purpose because, and I kind of alluded to this at the beginning, and you've mentioned some of this already before as well. Talking to some of the current events of the day, and I think we'd be remiss if we, as black men, black fathers in America, didn't talk about what's happening in the world today. And I'm going to preface this right now by saying I didn't tell Damon about none of this, and I may I may lose some of y'all on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube as friends right now. But look, I'm not worried about that. Y'all who know me know that, and we about to get kind of real. So,
yeah,
but but in all seriousness, and again, you kind of see the progression that I was talking to you about, right? Again, how you live your life and kind of from a mentality perspective, being strong, being spiritual, physically, mentally, emotionally, and all of that. Um, and there's some things going on today, right? I'm not really right now. I'm not worried about the guy sitting in Washington. I mean, that's a whole nother topic of the day. We can talk about that at any time. But I mean, I'm getting tired of running and posting for issues that are happening in the world today, right? I don't want to run 2.33 miles again for someone like an Ahmaud Arbery. I don't want to hear about an EMT in Louisville getting shot in their home. You know, I don't want to hear about a man that's out in the park trying to chill out, watch dogs, and gets the police called on him. I definitely don't want to hear about the police putting their knee on the neck of a man, and he doesn't make it. He didn't even make it to the cell, right? He doesn't make it to the police station a lot. So again, we'd be remiss if we didn't at least have this conversation, and I believe there may be some interaction that is going to happen as we kind of hone in and zero in on some more specific topics. But outside of this discussion, I want us to come up or try to have some positive message come out,
Yeah.
right? What are you telling folks in your circle? What are you telling folks in your home about what's going on? I can talk about what I'm saying, but I want to turn the floor over to you for a minute.
Well, a lot about success and like navigating life is about being honest with yourself and what you're seeing and what you're experiencing.
Hmm.
If you're not honest with your environment, it's very hard for you to thrive because one, you're constantly telling yourself you're being dishonest about what you're experiencing or what you're seeing.
Yeah.
And an environment is huge. Let me give you an example. So we went to a safari in San Diego. It was 3 years ago. So this safari has antelope, uh, giraffes, rhinos, and they're free roaming. But initially, when they started the safari, it's hundreds of acres. Initially, when they started, none of the animals would mate. They wouldn't mate, but they had a male and a female, and they wouldn't mate. They wouldn't bring any other life into the world. None of the animals. Matter of fact, a lot of them would die. Um, a large percentage of them would die. So as I was listening to this, and I was just really taking it in. And then what they said was that the animals were not in their natural habitat. They were spending too much time being enclosed and away from the other animals. Once they put them in their natural habitat, in an area where they could sense, they could see the other animals walking and roaming,
Mm-hmm.
immediately they started seeing the animals mating. So environment is huge. When you look at right now and you look at some of the situations that people are in, you have to really understand the environment. If your environment is not good, you will not be able to uh, reach the highest levels of your potential. You'll have some success, but you will not be able to reach the highest levels of your potential. So when you look at what's happening now, whether it's the brother that was the knee on the neck, again, this is a reality. This is what why Colin Kaepernick kneeled, whether you agree or you don't agree. Um, I don't. I try not to get into debates about it. I try to say, be honest, be intellectually honest with yourself. Um, so you have Colin Kaepernick kneeling, and now you have a man that's actually. The irony in this is a man has his knee on the back of another man, and that man dies. So what would you have? Would you rather have Colin Kaepernick kneeling or this person kneeling? It's just people aren't even seeing what's happening around them. And the reality is that it is highly likely and probable that this officer he knew exactly what he was doing because they are trained. Your Leo officers are trained. Um, I know some of them; they are trained, um, and they understand different locations in the body. So a knee in that position on the side of his neck where he was turned is just like a chokehold. It's what you would see in the MMA. Even something like that would be even more violent. A knee on the neck, that's a very hard bone on soft tissue. So that feels more violent than having an arm, your bicep or your forearm, right? So, and again, and then you have young lady, the black woman, the sister, beautiful black woman that was shot in her home in Texas, right? And then just a couple of days ago, you had a woman that um, specifically said, "I'm going to call the police on you," uh, and and says that I'm going to tell them it's an African American person. So she was trying to initiate, you
Right.
know, this blowback. So what we have to understand is that people have some negative motives and stop lying to ourselves. This isn't a matter of, and what's happened is I've seen more whites come out in these last incidents because what's happening is people are starting to lose their moral compass. And what I mean by that, and their influence. So when something is so blatant and so clear, and you're unwilling to tell the truth about it, not only does it harm you individually, your soul, right? But also it harms you in your environment and how people see you. You start to lose authority and credibility. And so that those are the things that have happened is where people have refused to speak up and they're losing credibility.
Yeah.
Uh, it's
You
bigger
know,
than
but
I mean, you got me started. So um,
go ahead, get riled up because you see
well,
me sitting up straight too. So go ahead.
I, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
I'm a I'm a business person, and we have integrity. Uh, we deal with everyone.
yeah.
We help everyone. Uh, I grew up in a diverse environment, so I know what a healthy environment looks like with different people. Vallejo, California was as of in
Mm-hmm,
2014 was the most diverse city in the entire country.
mm-hmm,
And when I grew up there, it was a working class place, meaning all people were there and were working class. They worked, right? It was middle class. So I know what a healthy environment looks like where people respect each other and honor each other. They honor their different music. They honor everything about them.
yeah,
So I'm not a person that was raised being swayed to one side or the other, um, and I'm thankful for that. I grew up in a household where uh, things were not perfect, but I grew up in a household. My parents uh, didn't talk about race, didn't lead me, and I never heard anything negative out of my father's or mother's mouth. And anyone that knows my parents or ever met them, I mean, they're awesome people, and my upbringing was not perfect. Um, so, but what I want to say about that is we have to be honest about what we're seeing,
yeah,
or else we start to lose our moral compass, which is sort of what has happened, where people are very fearful. But when you are a great person and everything that you do, everything that you put out is great. The majority of what you do is great. You spend a life helping people. Uh, you know in your heart who you are. At some point, you have to stand on that, and you can't be moved by the group mentality, thinking that I can't speak up, I can't have a conversation, I can't stand up for someone,
yeah,
because whether and I mean this, there was situations in the past a couple years ago where a young black teenager in Texas was abused and twisted and turned around, and an officer put their knee in their back, right? And so I would be upset if that was an Asian person, a Mexican person, a,
yeah,
a,
yeah.
a
Good
Hispanic,
point.
a white person. So
Yeah,
this, at some point, people have to say, you know, it is enough. With that being said, we need order, right? So people want order, they want organization. That is what law enforcement is there for. Um, and they need to uphold that code and that oath, right? So that's what they need to do. And when they see something wrong, they need to be able to stand up and say something. So
yeah.
we're in a critical time. That's just one issue.
Right, right. And I guess, that's, I'm being cognizant of and respect out of you and letting you air and say exactly what you want to say without me interjecting. But
Yeah,
you saw me fidgeting, right? So I got something to
yeah,
say. Um, but I agree with you wholeheartedly in terms of something is wrong somewhere, and something needs to change. Look, man. Again, like I even started at the beginning. You and I again grew up in the same type of hoods, right? In our formidable years, 16, 17, 18, 19, whatever the case may be. Northern California. I very similar grew up in a military family, so was blessed to be able to get more stamps in my passport before I was 16 than some folks get in their entire lifetime, right? So I've got the opportunity to travel to different countries and different regions, see the beauty of them, see the beauty of us, and experience all of those different cultures. Um, Irregardless of that, I have always had difficulty, not with authority. Uh, well, I didn't join the military myself because I wasn't much of a yes sir no sir person, you know, at those at those years. So that's why I didn't enlist. But look, there's been many a times where I have, as you probably, fit the profile, right, and have been pulled over, have been approached, have been called out, looked at, whatever the case may be, just for being who I am going up and down the street. Right? I've actually had an officer who I know, my family know, has told me confidentially that, hey, living where you live, you kind of are going to be assumed one way as opposed to assumed another way just because of who you are and where you live and what you look like. You look like what you look, and you are successful black man in this city. We're gonna look at you first with questions as opposed to with empathy, right? Whatever the case may be. So the fact that now we've got within the short time frame of 2 months, one, two, three, four, five, with six known issues that have happened, and this has been happening forever, right? The only reason now that we're talking about this is because now everyone's walking around with a camera on their phone, right? I'm 50 years old. I've been approached for the past 40 plus years with these types of situations. So I've been going through this forever. This
Yeah.
is nothing new. I applaud the I applaud the folks that are talking about this, wanting to have a dialogue about some type of change and about accountability to the folks who uh, are meant to protect and to serve. But it's not new, right? We've been going through this for a long, long time, and say what you want about Cap. Yeah, the reason why he knelt was is specifically for what happened to George Floyd. The exact reason, the overstepping of bounds.
Yeah.
And look, I used to work security for Bill Graham Presents and Clear Channel Entertainment, and I know about proper holds and what you can and cannot do, and when you're overstepping bounds, and what you shouldn't be doing to subdue or reduce an aggressive situation. And look, if I was knowledge of that, making my little $4 an hour, whatever the case may be, back 10, 15 years ago, I know a professional trained guardian of the society knows that a knee on your neck is just not going to be a good thing, especially when the man is sitting there not resisting from what we saw. I don't know what happened beforehand. I don't know what happened outside of the
Well,
view of the cell phone. But all I know is then when you overstep those bounds and end up taking someone's life, something has to be done with not just the system, but there's something inherently wrong with those individuals. And and
yeah.
I don't know what's causing folks to want to be less covert nowadays with some of these action and more overt. Again, I'm pointing towards the direction of Washington, but I'm not saying anything specifically about anyone's name. We need to. My thought is, and my challenge to myself is something like today, what we're doing right now, is to continue to have this conversation, to have this dialogue, to where we make folks aware of what's going on from the African American diaspora, from our perspective.
Right.
You got to tell folks, and we have to continue to have these dialogues in a very constructive manner. That
Well, yeah. So I guess you didn't ask me a question, but so
I know I just started going, and didn't I, brother? I just man, but
well,
that's what we do.
and I just want to, I want to be very responsible with my words. So no matter who's in office, as an individual, you have to be responsible for your actions. So what I mean by that is it's very easy for everyone to blame Donald Trump, right? But individuals are still, if they're behaving badly, right? There's a motive, or there's is something in their heart that was already there, right? So it's not as if he's individually controlling people like pawns. Now, um, leaders and certain leaders uh, may influence people with their. They may incite people. So we may have seen some of that. The reality is that what you got to understand is it's deeper, and I don't want to go too deep, but say for example, it was 3 years ago, the young teenager in Texas where there was an officer that grabbed her. She was in a bathing suit. He grabbed her, twisted her arm, threw her down.
Yeah,
This
I
was
remember
all
that.
boxing stuff, and then put his knee in her back. When you're talking about a young lady, right, that age, I mean, their skin is soft. They're very soft. They're feminine. I mean, like it takes a different mindset to even violently harm someone that age, right? So when you take it to the young man that was just murdered with a knee in his neck, people are just looking at the act, but it takes something to sit there with your knee in his neck because you're gonna feel how soft that tissue is. You're gonna feel that you're actually harming that person. And so what we have to understand is it's not just like an act of emotion. I mean, it's that people are totally desensitized and don't care and lack empathy, and they're able to harm, right? Um, it's very deep. So we have a fundamental problem of which I was talking about, this a little bit when I had my radio show, um, but you now it's out there for people to see.
Yeah, because I mean, your show, the athlete show, again was talking to athletes about socially oriented issues of the day, right? So having that conversation, and I think I'm gonna give shouts out to my wife here because she asked this question, right? How are we leading these conversations in our community today, and what can we do? I'm going to step back and say I think that is exactly the right question to ask. And again, I know today was unscripted, and we were supposed, and I think we talked about some of the key things. We will circle back in a minute, but I'm looking at us as pillars of the society, entrepreneurs, young black men, fathers, husbands, all that good stuff, right? All those adverts and accolades. What do we do besides going out and posting on Instagram that I feel sorry for the family, I feel sorry for the person who is either now incarcerated or no longer with us. There's got to be more of a mobility that
Well,
happens,
the bar
right?
the bar is too low at this point. So I mean, it takes a death, right? The bar is too low, so it takes a death for people to get emotionally charged.
That's no. I don't like that answer, man. I'm
Well,
sorry, bro. Why,
what,
why why do I have to read tomorrow in the local paper that someone else has
my
lost
point
their
is,
life?
what I mean is that before people are seeing the problem, a person has already lost their life,
You know,
right? So that bar is low, right? It should be higher than that. So before people are finding themselves in these situations, there should be real advocacy. So, for example, the first thing you can do is what you're doing. You're successful in every way. Your family, you're working. I mean, your daughter is off to college, one of the best colleges in the world. So you're setting.
shouts out to UCLA. Shouts out to UCLA Bruins.
No, I mean I see you all the time. I mean, so that's something that you're setting the example for you. That's the first thing you do is try to take care of yourself, try to overcome your own challenges and obstacles, and then from there, now you're influencing people that you don't even know. And then from there, now you can step out and try to help people. One of the best ways to help people is finding a pathway to be a viable person in society, and that's through some form of education and information. and then from there you're trying to find employment. So if you got education, information, and viable employment where you can move to building wealth, having home ownership and building wealth, you're going to reduce those chances of being in these places uh, to be harmed. The reality is that in many of these communities, it benefits the system, so to speak, for them not to be employed because that's more people on the streets to patrol from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. at night. If people are at work, right? If people are coming home and they have cohesive families, they're not on the street. So if you look at the studies, the number one precursor to this prison industrial complex or to being patrolled is a lack of employment, right? So that doesn't mean that you give a person a job, but that means that each person should have access to, an education. So then, you move to the conversation of some form of subsidy or whatnot, which, we've heard that they weren't able to do. Some people have talked about reparations, but, they said they couldn't do it, but we've given $13 trillion away in the
That's a
past
whole
months.
that's a whole another show, brother, right there.
Well, well, well,
That's a 2 hour show right there. You want to talk about reparations?
all of these things, but it's been $13 trillion, and somehow they were able to
Yeah.
do it. But then you have, massive college debt. So my point is that everyone um, should have access to a viable education, right? Right now from there, they can start trying to go find opportunity for employment. And when you can do that, you can remove yourself from the situation. Now, and as an individual, you have to do that. And the reason I say that is because what I'm a believer in is controlling what you can control. So I can go scream and scream and scream and scream about the issue. I can advocate through policy, right, which is a good way to do it. But how long does that take, right? And then what kind of blowback do I get as you go down to Sacramento and picket? So as an individual, if I can build a company, or if I can inspire someone, if I can hire someone, if I can employ someone, if I can help someone send their daughter, their child to college, then that's what we need to do. So as you as an individual being in corporate America, like, who could you help? Who could I have helped in there? Who could I help you employ? Maybe not your job, but they start off, man, there's entry level jobs, get these qualifications. So get the ball rolling. But believe it or not, uh, so-called African Americans are doing. Uh, there's quite a few people, and I'm not speaking on myself, that are doing well. When you go back east and you look in your places, and even where Aubrey in Georgia, I mean, there's high graduation route statistics where they're graduating at a high rate, they're going to college at a high rate. The problem is the opportunity isn't there. So it's education,
Yeah, yeah. Um,
employment, uh, is supporting entrepreneurs, right? Because everybody is not going to be that advocate, but everybody can be an advocate for their self and their family. Um, and
okay, I think that's where I'll I'll leave it. So I'll respectfully agree to disagree with some of the statements
okay,
that you made because and and
I,
I think we're close enough to be able to do that. And again, because from an education perspective, again, Brianna was an EMT, so she's got the education. Uh, Christian Cooper out there, yeah, he was out there just bird watching, but he's editor, writer, so Harvard educated man. So these folks had the education. It's just was it being in the wrong place at the wrong time? Was it being black in America? What is the case may be, right?
no, no, no,
So oh, go
I,
ahead. I'll let you go.
no, yeah, and so I'm glad you corrected me on that. So again, when you're talking about, so we have these issues, these individuals that are not individual issues. There are happening amongst different at high numbers. But when you look at collectively, if you go to Washington, D.C. collectively, or Detroit or Chicago, right, or any of these inner cities, you're going to see high numbers of unemployment, of access to capital, right? So that's one way to get the ball rolling. But yes, there is a fundamental issue with racism, man. There's a fundamental issue with racism. Um, your success, right, and your money doesn't separate you uh, from racism, and I can speak to that myself. I mean, I've been the last 2 years. I've went through situations myself that I've never even experienced in my life, and so how do you handle that? So if there's not a bunch of advocacy, right? If you didn't get it on film or you don't have a bunch of people advocating for you, then what do? You've got to keep moving forward because sometimes life will bring you exactly what your challenge is. So if and what I mean by this is if you don't want to face a police officer that's racist, right, and takes an advantage of you, what happens when you face that police officer that's racist and takes advantage of you? How do you respond to that? Do you go into a spiral of anger, depression, to where you can't move and you can't move forward? So you have to be able to like move forward. Now in these situations with these individuals that's been murdered, you have to have real advocacy. And what I
Yeah.
think, I mean, I posted this, and this is what I'll say because I'm you have to be responsible with your words. Supremacy has done so much harm. It's done so much harm that now it's eating itself. And what I look at it from a spiritual sense and see this is where a lot of people don't go. There's a judgment coming that'll be so severe that the people that have been harmed, that have been oppressed, will have empathy and compassion for those that are facing judgment.
Hmm. Hmm.
And you can see this sort of shift happening. And the reason you've had this heightened level of violence and racism is because this shift is happening. And the last uh, action when a person is frustrated is to act out violent, to try to take control violent, because you're actually losing control in society. So, um, yeah, that's
I
it.
love and and because we can continue on forever and all day, and but I don't want to deviate from what the core premise of today's discussion was, and I did so. Thank you for going on that journey with me. I know it may have gotten warm a little bit just because we had that dialogue, and that's what we need to do, right? We need to have that dialogue, right? Just back and forth, and having these conversations. I much appreciate the folks that are leaving comments and statements here online as well, because I think we touched on some of those a little bit, and I think more needs to happen from a vocalization perspective. I like the fact that you're coming from a moral high ground, and I think if more folks came from that moral high ground, and I can go to church every single Sunday, but if I leave the church house at 1:30 in the afternoon and then go out there and punch my neighbor in the neck, that's not in a good book, right? So I think we need to be cognizant of that. I think we need to continue to have these dialogues, and I think what I'm going to do take some onus on is maybe get some of our leaders together in this area and have more of a concerted roundtable about these types of conversations and this discussion, and do some more action. But that being said, back to again kind of and again your statements fed into everything that we've talked about you up until that point, right? Again, you being focused on ensuring that your mind is right, focused on making sure that your body is right, you're spiritually intact and things of that. So you take that into So there it goes. Your business, you take that into your music, you take that into your entrepreneurship and your social views, which are phenomenal. So I thank you for being honest with me and the audience in terms of your thoughts and your feelings on that. And again, man, I didn't want to completely hijack the conversation and go into that, but again, I think we would have been remiss if we didn't at least have this discussion. It's always relevant, but while again, it's slapping everyone in the face, and the discussion is going around all over the place. So, um,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's what I would say is if I were speaking directly to the black man, I would say master yourself in every way. There's challenges and obstacles out there. And so when you have these conversations, you have to be very responsible because there's somebody out there that's listening. Uh, it's not about pacifying, but it's about what could you tell a person when you're speaking to a group. And so we're speaking to a group.
right,
And when you're speaking to a group, master yourself, be able to understand and discern the environments that you're in, be able to uh, be aware of the people you come in contact with, the people that uh, don't have the best motives for you, right? Be able to see that. Now, people say they don't have control. Well, if you accept that mindset, then you don't have control. Um, and obviously, there's examples where people can say they don't have control, but what I would say is master yourself in every way. Give yourself the best chance to succeed. And when I say succeed, I don't mean necessarily money. I mean prosperity, fullness,
hmm hmm
joy, family, substance, shelter, safety, right?
right,
Harmony, peace, right? So how do you navigate that and stay away from these negative things? Uh, sometimes you can't. Sometimes you're faced with it. I've been faced with it.
yeah,
I've personally
yeah,
been faced with things that I haven't been faced with in my life, and
right,
so and you have to. I had to look at myself and say, what was I gonna become? So I would say when you're talking about opposition and opposing force, you have to know that you have an opposing force, but you can't react to it. You have to respond to it. And when you respond, hopefully that's a situation where you're forced to respond and you can defend yourself properly, defend yourself in every way, right? Legally, physically, in every way. Because if you react, right, then you put yourself in a situation, a very compromising situation, in which uh, there's people that want you in that situation. They want you in a vulnerable place, so now they can dictate, your life to you. And
right,
that's what people don't realize. It's not about having conversations and being angry and spinning the spiral. It's about mastering yourself. So what are the components of mastering yourself? If I were saying you got to master what you put in your body, you got to master what you put in your mind. You have to find something that you're good at and master it. Get good enough at it to where you can monetize it,
hmm
right? And then you have to build an infrastructure and a family and people around you that are going to allow you to springboard off of that. And then you give yourself a good chance. And when you face those negative situations and people, you can say, you know what? I've been kind, I've tried, and then you just change the environment.
I've done my best, right? I've done my part. I've
But again, I mean,
yeah,
it's different for these individuals that have transitioned on. I mean, you can't say that to a parent. You can't
yeah,
minimize that.
yeah. That's tough.
But there's people that are listening, 17, 18, 25, they don't know what to do.
Yeah,
So if you tell them to go out in the street and run and, they may go do that. And you may not even know that you're responsible for someone being harmed or something like that by what you said because you're trying to speak to a collective where people want you to be angry.
yeah.
So you have to be strategic.
I like it, man. I appreciate that. And On that note, again, I think we are going to continue this conversation around. I'm gonna coin this frame, mental advocacy. I like that. I'm gonna see if I can patent that. I didn't patent the word infotainment before, 10 years ago when I started the site, like I probably should have. But we gonna have this discussion a little bit more. Uh, David, talk to us. Tell me about where folks can find you, man. Online, websites, social media, things of that nature. Where can people get in contact with you?
So Souletics, you just type in Souletics, Souletics.me or Souletics.com goes to the site, helping athletes take control of their athletic career. We also work with parents of athletes, of young athletes, all the way down to five, all the way up to professional in multiple sports. We have several programs, whether you're choosing if you want to home train your child. So we have programs for that, entry level programs that are very, very cost effective. If you're trying to figure out if you want to do a combination of home training and sending your child to an academy or camp, we have, what you should think about, the question of 40, the most important things you should answer before sending your child to a camp, a combine, or sports academy. Um, we are an advocate for, athletes and parents. There's nothing better than really maximizing your gifts, whatever they are,
Hmm.
and being able to monetize that. So that's what we help. help
Amazing,
do.
amazing. Well,
Yeah.
appreciate you, brother. Thank you for taking some time out of your busy schedule.
Yeah.
Little bit of back and forth conversation, but again, I kind of planned it that way. I didn't let you know everything that we were going to talk about because I wanted to get that raw emotion. I wanted to have that dialogue and it not necessarily be staged. And I think we barely scratched the surface on some of these things. And I think, again, we just as a collective need to continue to have these dialogues and have these conversations. So anything is a good start. Um,
Like being challenged too. So
oh, I'm going to get you.
the facts that you said you disagree with me, I love that. All my friends that do that to me, I love it. I start laughing. I'm like, I'm like, what did I say?
But again, that's how we progress and move forward, though, right, man? That's what it's all about, right?
Yeah,
Having
I
those
think
having those.
I'm strong. I got that middle game, but I'm also it's I'm not trying to dictate anyone else's life.
Yeah,
So it's my insight on what I see. That may not necessarily work for someone else, or they may have a different experience, right?
yeah, yeah.
So
And that's exactly why, again, I didn't interrupt while you were talking, right? I really
yeah,
wanted to let that whole moment flow, right, and let you have that conversation. So, folks, thank you very much for joining us for this latest episode of ITN Live. I especially want to thank Mr. Smith for allowing us to probe and prod and go into different aspects of his life. Definitely check out Souletics.com for those of you who are training, want your children to be trained from an athletic perspective and be trained the right way. Again, that whole mental, physical, spiritual aspect. Uh, if you're into some very cool music, I mean, this man will get on the keyboards and get to singing and get to humming and talking that spoken word. Check out his stuff, the Rafa Selassie. Got it
you
right
want,
that
you
time.
want me to do a little bit?
Well, tell me. We can go out that way if you want to.
I
Yeah,
can take you out. I'll take you
all
out.
right, we can do that. Instead of my typical outro, we can play some of that. I'm flexible.
All right, I'll take it out.
And as he's setting up, ladies and gentlemen, again, James Hicks, thank you for joining us. You can always find me on social at James Hicks. Let us know in the comments on Facebook or Twitter or wherever the case may be of what you thought this dialogue was. Share it with your friends, share it with your family. We're going to continue to have these conversations, and I think it's relevant that not just someone like myself and Damon have these conversations, but you out in the community as well, and challenge the establishment to make sure that they're doing right by us. So we appreciate you. Thank you very much. And we're going to go out now by Rafa Selassie, ladies and gentlemen.
Hold your head high. Release yourself from past trials. Embrace your gifts. And press towards the future.